The porcelain cup rattled against the saucer as I set it down on table 7. My fingers trembled slightly. Not from the weight, but from exhaustion. The diner's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a harsh glow that seemed to exaggerate every worry line on my face. At 26, I shouldn't have looked so worn down. But 18-hour shifts and constant worry had a way of aging you. "More coffee, Mrs. Rossi?" I asked, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. The elderly woman nodded, her weathered hands clutching a small pill organizer. She had been coming to Bella's diner every Tuesday for the past month, always alone, always at the same corner table partially hidden by a large fern. There was something dignified about her. The way she dressed in expensive but understated clothes, how she spoke softly but commanded attention. "Thank you, dear," she said, her accent thick with old-world Italian. Such a kind girl. I poured the coffee, watching as she fumbled with her pill case, arthritic fingers struggling with the tiny compartment. Without thinking, I set down the pot. "Can I help you with that, Mrs. Rossi?" Relief flooded her face. "Would you? These old hands aren't what they used to be." I popped open the compartment marked Tuesday evening and tipped the colorful assortment of pills into her trembling palm. She thanked me with a gentle pat on my wrist, her touch surprisingly warm. "My son worries too much about these medications," she confided. "He has people watching me, making sure I take them." She gestured vaguely toward a black sedan parked across the street, its windows tinted to impenetrability. But I escaped my handler today. A small rebellion at my age. Her eyes twinkled mischievously. I smiled, genuinely this time. Small rebellions were something I understood all too well. The bell above the diner door chimed, and instantly the atmosphere changed. The ambient chatter died down, replaced by a heavy silence that seemed to press against my eardrums. Even the clinking of cutlery ceased. I didn't need to turn around to know someone important had entered, but some magnetic pull forced me to look anyway. He stood in the doorway, backlit by the dying sunlight, his silhouette cutting a commanding figure against the fading day. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than my annual rent. But it was the way people reacted to him that made my stomach tighten. The way my manager suddenly appeared from the back office. The way 2 men at the counter discreetly touched their jackets where weapons might be concealed. "Mama," he said, just one word, but loaded with exasperation and concern. Mrs. Rossi sighed. "Antonio, you found me." He moved through the diner with casual grace that belied the tension rippling around him. A younger man, clearly security, positioned himself near the door, scanning the restaurant with practiced precision. I realized I was still standing at Mrs. Rossi's table, pill case in hand, like a deer caught in headlights. "You're supposed to be at home, resting," he said. Then his eyes slid to me, and the world seemed to tilt slightly on its axis. Up close, I could see he wasn't much older than me, early 30s perhaps, with features that belonged on an Italian Renaissance painting. Strong jaw, straight nose, and eyes so dark they appeared black in the diner's poor lighting. Something flashed across his face when he looked at me. Recognition? Confusion? Before hardening into assessment. "And who is this?" His voice was smooth as aged whiskey, with just enough of an accent to betray his Italian heritage. "This is Mrs. Rossi began, then paused, realizing she didn't know my name. "Sophia," I supplied, suddenly conscious of my worn uniform, the coffee stains on my apron. I was just helping with the medication. Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. "Were you now?" The way he looked at me made my skin prickle, like I was being catalogued, assessed for threat level. I unconsciously took a step back, bumping into an empty chair. "She's been very kind to me, Antonio," Mrs. Rossi said firmly, placing a protective hand on my wrist. "The only one in this place who treats me like a person, not a curiosity." His expression softened marginally when he looked at his mother, but when his gaze returned to me, it was penetrating, searching. I felt stripped bare, as though he could see every bad decision I'd ever made, every unpaid bill, every desperate prayer I'd whispered into my pillow. "You shouldn't take pills from strangers, Mama," he said, though his eyes never left mine. "I watched her open the case," I said defensively. I wouldn't." Sophia works here every day, Mrs. Rossi interrupted. She remembers how I like my coffee, brings extra napkins without asking. She's a good girl. Antonio studied me for a moment longer, then reached inside his jacket. I flinched instinctively, causing a slight smirk to cross his face. He pulled out not a weapon, but a sleek black wallet, extracting several $100 bills. "For your assistance," he said, extending them toward me. Pride, the last luxury of the poor, made me shake my head. "That's not necessary. I was just doing my job." His eyebrow arched in surprise. "You're refusing my money?" "I'm not refusing anything," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I just don't need payment for basic human decency, Mrs." Rossi chuckled, looking between us with newfound interest. "See, Antonio? Not everyone can be bought." Something shifted in his expression. Respect, perhaps, or curiosity. He replaced the bills in his wallet with deliberate slowness. "Everyone has a price, Mama. Some just negotiate differently." The implications in his voice made heat creep up my neck. I cleared my throat and gestured toward the coffee pot. "Would you like some coffee? Or something to eat?" "No," he replied, still watching me with that unsettling intensity. "We're leaving. Mama needs rest." Mrs. Rossi made a sound of disapproval. "I'm perfectly fine, Antonio. Don't be rude to—" A sudden commotion at the entrance cut her off. 3 men burst through the door, their movements urgent but controlled. The security guard by the door immediately tensed, hand moving beneath his jacket. "Boss," the lead man said, ignoring the horrified looks from the other patrons. "We need to move. Now." Antonio's demeanor changed instantly. Gone was the smirking, arrogant man, replaced by someone sharper, more dangerous. He glanced at his mother, then at me, making a quick calculation. "Get my mother to the car," he ordered, and 2 of the men moved toward our table. Mrs. Rossi sighed in resignation. "This always happens when I try to have a normal evening out." She reached for her purse, but her hands trembled so badly that her pill case clattered to the floor, spilling medications across the linoleum. "No!" she cried out, surprisingly distressed. "My heart medication. I can't miss a dose." I knelt immediately, gathering the scattered pills. "Which one is it?" I asked, looking at the rainbow of medications rolling under the table. "Small white one, oval," she said anxiously. "I need it within the hour or—" "Ma'am, we need to go," one of the men insisted, his hand on her elbow. "Not without my medication," Mrs. Rossi insisted, a note of genuine panic in her voice. I spotted the pill beneath a nearby chair and grabbed it, rising quickly. "Here it is," I said, offering it to her with an outstretched palm. Our eyes met briefly, hers filled with gratitude, mine with concern. She took the pill and swallowed it dry, then allowed the men to help her stand. "Thank you, Sophia," she said warmly. "You're an angel." Antonio was watching this exchange with an inscrutable expression. As they began to escort his mother toward the exit, he turned to me. "You know what it is," he stated, not a question. "Digoxin," I replied automatically. "My grandmother took it for heart arrhythmia before she passed." Something seemed to click into place for him. He studied me with new interest, head tilted slightly. "You have medical knowledge?" 2 years of nursing school before I had to drop out, I admitted, unsure why I was sharing this with him. The 3rd man approached Antonio, whispering urgently in his ear. Antonio nodded once, then made a decision. "You're coming with us," he said, his tone leaving no room for discussion. I blinked in confusion. "What?" "No, I'm working. I can't just—" "Your shift ends in 20 minutes, he cut in. I checked the schedule by the register. A cold sensation settled in my stomach. "How did you—" "My mother needs someone who knows her medication," he continued, as if I hadn't spoken. "And you've just volunteered." "I didn't volunteer for anything," I protested, aware of the other diners watching our exchange with wide eyes. "I can't just leave with strangers." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "We're hardly strangers now, Sophia. You've been serving my mother for weeks. You know what medication she takes. That makes you—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Involved." The way he said it made it sound like a threat. My pulse quickened. "Antonio," Mrs. Rossi called from the doorway. "Don't frighten the poor girl. Sophia, dear, would you consider coming to help an old woman? Just for tonight. I don't trust the nurses my son hires. They report everything back to him. I glanced between them, weighing my options. My apartment was cold and empty, the electricity due to be cut off any day now. My roommate had moved out, leaving me with double the rent I couldn't afford. My bank account held less than $50, and payday was still a week away. I'll pay you, of course, Antonio added, as if sensing my mental calculations. Generously. Pride warred with practicality. I don't even know who you are, I said weakly. Something like amusement flickered across his face. Antonio Rossi, he said, extending his hand as if we were meeting at a business conference, rather than in a dingy diner under mysterious circumstances. And you already know my mother, Elena Rossi. I didn't take his hand. That doesn't tell me anything. It tells you everything you need to know for now, he replied, dropping his hand. The rest, you'll learn soon enough, if you choose to come. And if I don't choose? His expression darkened. Then I find someone else who knows about digoxin and doesn't ask so many questions. But my mother seems to trust you, which is, he paused, unusual. From the doorway, Mrs. Rossi called again. Sophia, please, just for tonight. I looked at her fragile form, then back at Antonio's imposing presence. Something told me this wasn't really a choice at all. And yet, something else, something reckless and tired of my monotonous struggle, whispered that this was an opportunity, dangerous as it might be. I need to get my coat, I finally said. Antonio's lips curved into a satisfied smile. Wise decision. As I untied my apron with shaking hands, I caught my reflection in the chrome napkin dispenser. I looked pale, my dark hair falling from its bun, my blue eyes wide with uncertainty. For a moment, I didn't recognize the woman staring back at me, the one making a decision that felt simultaneously like surrender and rebellion. Just for tonight, I murmured to myself, though something in Antonio's possessive gaze as he watched me move toward the staff room suggested he had very different plans. Outside, the black sedan waited, engine running, exhaling white breath into the cold evening air. As Antonio's hand settled on the small of my back, guiding me toward it with firm pressure, I couldn't shake the sensation of stepping into a beautiful cage, the door swinging shut behind me with the quiet finality of expensive engineering. What had I just agreed to? Block 2. The car smelled of expensive leather and subtle cologne. I sat rigidly between Mrs. Rossi and the door, painfully aware of Antonio's presence in the front passenger seat. The privacy partition was up, but I could see the silhouette of his head, slightly turned as if he was watching me through the rearview mirror. My coat, a threadbare thing I'd bought at a thrift store 3 winters ago, felt inadequate against the luxury surrounding me. Don't look so frightened, dear, Mrs. Rossi patted my hand. My son appears fierce, but he protects what he values. Her choice of words sent a chill down my spine. Not who, but what he values. Possessions, not people. Where are we going? I asked, my voice sounding small in the hushed interior. Home, she replied simply, as if that explained everything. We drove for nearly an hour, leaving the familiar grid of the city behind, venturing into the wealthy suburbs where houses grew larger and further apart. Finally, the car turned through wrought iron gates that opened silently upon our approach, revealing a long, tree-lined driveway. Security cameras swiveled to track our progress, and I counted at least 3 men patrolling the perimeter, their dark forms barely visible in the gathering dusk. The mansion, loomed ahead, all stone and glass, dramatically lit against the night sky. It wasn't ostentatious in the way of new money, but solid, established, like it had witnessed generations of secrets and intended to keep them all. Welcome to Villa Rossi, Mrs. Rossi said, a hint of pride in her voice. The car came to a stop at the front entrance. The driver opened Mrs. Rossi's door first, then mine. As I emerged, the cold air bit at my cheeks, carrying the scent of pine and wood smoke. Antonio appeared at my side, standing close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. Get my mother settled, he instructed a waiting staff member, then turned to me. Come. Not please come. Or would you come? Just a command, issued with absolute certainty of obedience. I glanced at Mrs. Rossi, who gave me an encouraging smile before being escorted inside. I should stay with your mother, I protested weakly. That's why I'm here. You're here because I brought you here, Antonio replied, his hand finding the small of my back again, guiding me toward a separate entrance. And my mother needs rest before she needs your assistance. I wanted to argue, but found myself following him through a side door into what appeared to be a private wing of the house. The interior was warm, decorated in rich woods and deep blues, masculine without being overtly so. A fire crackled in a stone hearth, casting dancing shadows on book-lined walls. Sit. He gestured toward a leather armchair. I remained standing. Small defiances were all I had left. His lips quirked in what might have been amusement. As you wish. He moved to a cabinet, withdrew 2 crystal glasses, and poured amber liquid into each. Drink? No, thank you. I declined, though my mouth was dry with nervousness. He set 1 glass down anyway, keeping the other. For when you change your mind. He studied me openly now, his dark eyes taking in my worn uniform, my scuffed shoes, the way I nervously tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. I felt exposed, like an insect under a microscope. You have questions, he stated. Dozens, I admitted. Starting with who you really are and why you brought me here. I told you who I am. A name isn't an identity, I countered. Something darkened in his expression. Careful, Sophia. Curiosity isn't always rewarded. Neither is kidnapping waitresses. His laugh was unexpected, a rich, genuine sound that transformed his face, making him appear younger, almost approachable. Kidnapping? You came willingly. Under duress. Under opportunity, he corrected, taking a sip of his drink. You were looking for an escape. I provided one. The accuracy of his assessment unsettled me. You don't know me. I know enough. He set down his glass, moving closer. 2 years of nursing school before dropping out. Working double shifts at a diner that's barely staying afloat. An empty apartment with past due notices, no family to speak of, or you wouldn't be alone on holidays, eating leftover pie in the break room. My breath caught. You've been watching me. Since the first day my mother mentioned the kind waitress with sad eyes. He circled me slowly like a predator assessing prey. I make it my business to know everything about people who come into my mother's life. She's trusting. I am not. I swallowed hard. And what business is that exactly? He stopped directly in front of me, close enough that I could see the faint scar bisecting his left eyebrow. Import, export, real estate, investment, family enterprises. Family, I repeated, the euphemism not lost on me. The expensive suits, the security, the way people reacted to him at the diner. It all made sense now. You're not just any businessman. No, he agreed. I'm not. You're a criminal, I said, the words falling between us like stones. His expression hardened. I'm a man who does what's necessary to protect what's mine. A tremor ran through me, part fear, part something else I didn't want to name. I should go. To what? He challenged. Your cold apartment? Your dead-end job? The life you're barely surviving, not living? His words struck a nerve, sharp and true. I'd been drowning for so long that treading water felt like success. My life is my concern, I said, lifting my chin. And my mother is mine, he countered. She needs someone with medical knowledge who isn't on my payroll, someone she trusts. For how long? Until I decide otherwise. The presumption in his voice sparked something in me. Anger, cutting through the fear. I'm not one of your possessions, Mr. Rossi. You can't just decide my future. He stepped closer, near enough that I could smell his cologne, sandalwood and something darker. Everyone in this house is here because I allow it. Everyone who leaves does so because I permit it. His voice dropped lower, including you. I should have been terrified. Instead, I felt a dangerous thrill, like standing at a cliff's edge. Are you threatening me? I'm clarifying our arrangement. We don't have an arrangement. His smile was slow, predatory. $30,000 for 3 months of your time. Exclusive care for my mother, room, board, clothing, all provided. The sum made me dizzy. It was more money than I'd see in a year at the diner. Why me? My mother trusts you. That's rare enough to be valuable. And if I refuse, then I'll have you driven back to your apartment tonight, with enough cash to cover your overdue rent. He shrugged, and find someone else who knows about digoxin and can be bought more easily. It was a fair offer. More than fair. Yet something in his eyes told me there would be strings attached, invisible chains that might prove impossible to break. I need to think about it, I said finally. Of course. He agreed too easily. Sleep on it. We'll talk tomorrow. Before I could respond, the door opened, and a stern-looking woman in her 50s entered. She wore a simple black dress, her silver hair pulled back in a tight bun. Maria will show you to your room, Antonio said. I've had clothes sent up. If they don't fit, she'll take measurements for new ones. I haven't agreed to stay, I reminded him. His expression was confident, bordering on smug. Yet you haven't left either. With that, he turned away, dismissing me as easily as he'd commanded me earlier. I followed Maria through the sprawling house, up a curved staircase, and into a wing that seemed designed for guests. She opened a door to reveal a bedroom 3 times the size of my entire apartment. Bathroom through there. She indicated a door. Closet there. Mr. Rossi has arranged for some items you might need tonight. Tomorrow we can address a more complete wardrobe. The presumption stung. I haven't decided to stay. Maria's expression didn't change. The decision was made the moment you entered the car, miss, whether you acknowledge it or not. She paused at the door. Dinner is at 8. I'll return to escort you. After she left, I explored the room in a daze. The bed was massive, draped in crisp white linens that probably cost more than my monthly rent. The bathroom featured a marble shower and a clawfoot tub deep enough to swim in. The closet contained a selection of designer clothing, all approximately my size, with tags still attached. How long had he been planning this? The thought sent a shiver through me. I moved to the window, pulling back heavy curtains to reveal a view of manicured gardens, now shadowy in the darkness. The grounds were surrounded by a high stone wall, topped with what looked suspiciously like security sensors. A beautiful prison. My phone buzzed in my pocket, my manager from the diner, probably wondering why I'd left without clocking out. I pulled it out, only to find the screen cracked badly, the device struggling to power on. It must have happened during the car ride. With a sigh, I set it on the nightstand. One more broken thing in my broken life. The closet beckoned with its promise of new clothes. Pride told me to refuse them, but practicality won out. I selected the simplest outfit I could find, black slacks and a cream-colored blouse, and carried them to the bathroom. Under the hot spray of water that never seemed to cool or lose pressure, I tried to wash away the day's confusion, the fear, the strange anticipation. What was I doing here? Why had I come? The answers that surfaced were uncomfortable. Desperation, curiosity, a reckless desire to escape the grinding poverty that had become my life. As I dressed in clothes that fit as if they'd been made for me, I caught my reflection in the steamy mirror. I looked different somehow, my dark hair falling in damp waves around my shoulders, my blue eyes brighter against the cream of the blouse. For a moment, I glimpsed the woman I might have been if life had dealt me different cards. A knock at the door jolted me from my thoughts. Maria had returned, her expression still impassive. Mrs. Rossi has requested your presence before dinner, she informed me. She is in the solarium. I followed her through the labyrinthine house, trying to memorize the route. The solarium was a glass-enclosed garden room, warm and humid, filled with exotic plants and comfortable wicker furniture. Mrs. Rossi sat in a cushioned chair, looking frailer than she had at the diner, but her eyes brightened when she saw me. Sophia, you came. She gestured to the seat beside her. Come, sit. Tell me you're staying. I perched on the edge of the chair. Mrs. Rossi. Elena, please. Elena, I amended. I'm not sure what I'm doing here. Helping an old woman with her medications, she said simply. And perhaps helping yourself too. Your son said something about 3 months. She waved a hand dismissively. Antonio always negotiates from a position of strength. But yes, I need someone through the winter at least. The cold makes my heart condition worse. She leaned forward, taking my hand in her papery one. And I'd much rather it be someone kind than those stone-faced nurses Antonio usually hires. I never finished my training, I admitted. I'm not really qualified. You know enough, she assured me. And you have something no amount of training can provide: compassion. Her grip tightened. Stay, Sophia, at least for a while. Looking into her earnest face, I felt my resistance weakening. What was waiting for me back home? An eviction notice? Another 18-hour shift for minimum wage plus meager tips? I'll stay, I found myself saying, but only to help you with your medications. I'm not... I hesitated, unsure how to phrase it. I won't be involved in anything else. Understanding dawned in her eyes. Ah, you've realized what my son does. She didn't seem disturbed by my knowledge. His father built our family business. Antonio has merely expanded it. I chose my words carefully. It's not my concern. Wise girl, she approved. Keep that attitude, and you'll do well here. The door to the solarium opened, and Antonio entered, his presence immediately filling the space. He'd changed into a dark button-down shirt, open at the collar, revealing a glimpse of tanned skin. His eyes found mine instantly, a possessive glint in them that made my pulse quicken. I see you've decided to join us for dinner, he observed, noting my new clothes with obvious approval. I've decided to help your mother, I corrected. Nothing more. His smile suggested he knew better. For now. Dinner was served in a formal dining room that could have hosted a state dinner. The massive table of polished mahogany gleamed beneath crystal chandeliers, though only 3 places were set. One at the head for Antonio, one to his right for his mother, and one to his left for me. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. I was being positioned as important, but still subordinate. Elena insisted I sit beside her, disrupting the careful arrangement. The flash of annoyance on Antonio's face was quickly masked, but I caught it, a glimpse behind the controlled facade. Mother, he said with strained patience. Sophia should learn her proper place at this table. Nonsense, Elena replied, patting the chair beside her. She's here to care for me, so she should sit where I can speak with her easily. I sank into the offered chair, uncomfortably aware of Antonio's dark gaze tracking my movements. The tension between mother and son was palpable. A silent battle of wills playing out over dinner seating. I was merely the battlefield. Staff appeared silently, serving a meal that would have cost a week's wages at the diner: delicate pasta and truffle cream sauce, roasted lamb with herbs, vegetables prepared so artfully they resembled jewels on the plate. Wine was poured, a rich red for Antonio, a lighter white for Elena, and water for me, though Antonio instructed the server to pour me wine as well. I don't drink while working, I said, covering my glass with my hand. You're not working now, he countered. You're dining. I'm here to care for your mother's health, I insisted. That responsibility doesn't end at the dinner table. Something like respect flickered in his eyes. Elena chuckled softly. She has principles, Antonio, she said. You remember those? He ignored the barb, raising his glass instead. To new arrangements, he toasted, eyes locked on mine. The meal progressed with carefully orchestrated conversation. Elena asked about my background, and I shared the sanitized version. Nursing school cut short by financial hardship after my grandmother passed away. A series of jobs to stay afloat, the diner being the most stable of them. I omitted the eviction notices, the nights I'd gone hungry to pay for electricity, the crushing weight of failed dreams. Antonio ate methodically, speaking little but watching everything. Occasionally his phone would buzz and he would check it discreetly. Once he excused himself to take a call in the hallway. When he returned, his expression was harder, his shoulders tense beneath his expensive shirt. Business never sleeps, Elena explained when he stepped away a second time. Even at the dinner table. What exactly is your son's business? I dared to ask, keeping my voice low. Elena's eyes crinkled with amusement. You've already guessed, I think. The Rossi family has interests in many sectors. Import, export, construction, real estate, entertainment. And protection? I suggested. Among other things, she acknowledged without shame. My husband built an empire from nothing. Antonio inherited it and made it stronger, more diverse. You're talking about organized crime, I said plainly. She shrugged one delicate shoulder. Such an ugly phrase for what is essentially an alternative business model. She took a sip of wine. You disapprove. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. It's not my place to approve or disapprove. A diplomatic answer, she noted. Good. You'll need that skill here. Before I could respond, Antonio returned, slipping his phone into his pocket. Is my mother interrogating you about family matters? He asked, his tone light, but his eyes sharp. Just getting acquainted, Elena replied innocently. Sophia isn't here for family matters, he reminded his mother, the emphasis making it clear what he meant. She's here for your health. For now, Elena said, echoing his earlier words with a knowing smile. After dinner, Elena claimed fatigue, and I escorted her to her suite, a process that involved navigating more of the sprawling mansion. Her rooms were on the ground floor, beautifully appointed but modified for her medical needs. A hospital-grade bed, disguised with luxurious linens, oxygen equipment discreetly housed in an antique cabinet, medications organized in a leather case rather than plastic containers. The pretense of normalcy, she explained, seeing my assessment. Antonio thinks if he makes it beautiful enough, I'll forget I'm dying. The bluntness of her statement startled me. Is your condition that serious? Congestive heart failure, complicated by pulmonary hypertension, she said matter-of-factly. The medications buy time, not cure. I helped her prepare for bed, organizing her evening pills and showing her which ones to take when. As I worked, I explained the purpose of each medication, their side effects, and what to watch for. You would have made a fine nurse, she observed. Why did you really leave school? I hesitated, then decided on honesty. My grandmother died. She raised me after my parents were killed in a car accident when I was 8. She was all I had. When she passed, there was just enough from the sale of her house to cover the funeral and her outstanding medical bills, nothing left for tuition. And no other family? She pressed. None that claimed me, I said, trying to keep the bitterness from my voice. She studied me thoughtfully. So we're alike then, both of us alone in the world, except for what family we can create for ourselves. You have Antonio, I pointed out. Yes, she agreed. And now you have us. The presumption should have bothered me. Instead, I felt an unexpected warmth, a dangerous sense of belonging I couldn't afford to indulge. I busied myself checking her pulse, noting it in the log kept by her bedside. He'll try to keep you, you know, she said suddenly, as I adjusted her pillows. Once Antonio decides something belongs to him, he never lets it go. I don't belong to anyone, I said firmly. Her smile was knowing. We'll see. After she was settled, I returned to the hallway to find Antonio waiting, leaning against the wall with deceptive casualness. He straightened when he saw me, and for a moment, I thought I glimpsed relief in his expression. Is she comfortable? He asked. Yes, I confirmed. I've reviewed her medications and taken her vitals. Her pulse is slightly elevated, but that could be from the excitement of the day. He nodded, seeming satisfied with my professional assessment. Walk with me, he said, already turning down the hallway. It wasn't a request, but I followed anyway, curious despite my better judgment. He led me through a different wing of the house, this one darker, more masculine in its design. Heavy woods, leather furnishings, the occasional hunting trophy mounted on walls. A man's domain. We entered what appeared to be a study. Book-lined walls, a massive desk, a fireplace with actual flames dancing behind the grate. He closed the door behind us, and immediately the atmosphere changed. This wasn't just any room. This was his inner sanctum, where decisions were made, power wielded. Your employment contract, he said, gesturing to papers laid out on the desk. 30,000 for 3 months, as discussed, plus bonuses for exceptional care. I approached cautiously, scanning the document. The legal language was straightforward. I would provide exclusive care to Elena Rossi, maintain medical confidentiality, reside at the estate, and follow security protocols. What caught my attention was the non-disclosure agreement attached. "I'm not signing this," I said, pointing to the NDA. "I won't be legally silenced about anything I see or hear." His expression darkened. "That's non-negotiable." "Then so am I countered. "I'll sign an agreement to care for your mother and maintain her medical confidentiality. Nothing more." He moved closer, his presence suddenly intimidating. "You don't understand the position you're in." "I understand perfectly," I said, standing my ground. "You need me for your mother. I need the money. But I won't sign away my rights." He studied me with new interest, like a scientist observing an unexpected reaction in an experiment. "Most people don't say no to me." "I'm not most people, clearly," he murmured. He circled the desk, retrieving a pen from a drawer. With a single, deliberate stroke, he crossed out the NDA section, initialing beside it. "Amended." I blinked in surprise. I hadn't expected him to yield so easily. "You look shocked," he observed, offering me the pen. "Did you think I would threaten you, force you to sign?" "The thought crossed my mind," I admitted. "I don't need to force people, Sophia," he said, my name rolling off his tongue like something savored. "I simply make the consequences of refusal clear. And what would those consequences have been?" His smile was cold, irrelevant now. He nodded toward the contract. "Sign." I hesitated, scanning the document once more. The terms were generous, the work straightforward. It was a lifeline thrown to a drowning woman, one that might pull me to safety or drag me under completely. Taking a deep breath, I signed my name. "Excellent," he said, collecting the papers. "You start immediately." "I need to collect my things from my apartment," I pointed out. "Clothes, personal items, already taken care of," he replied smoothly. "While you were with my mother, I sent men to pack your belongings. They'll be delivered tomorrow." Anger flared, hot and sudden. "You had no right to do that." "I had every right," he countered. "You're in my employ now. Your security is my concern." "My privacy is my concern," I snapped. "You can't just send men into my home." "Your lease was being terminated," he said dismissively. "The building is being condemned. Did your landlord not inform you?" The news hit me like a physical blow. "What?" "No, he didn't tell me anything about condemnation. The notice was posted last week," Antonio said, watching me closely. "The entire building must be vacated by the end of the month. Structural issues." My mind reeled. Where would I have gone? What would I have done? The timing of Antonio's offer suddenly seemed less like coincidence and more like calculated intervention. "Did you know?" I asked quietly. "Before you offered me this job, is that why you chose now to approach me?" He didn't answer directly. "I make it my business to know everything about people who interest me." "So I'm what? A charity case? A convenient solution to your mother's care and my homelessness?" His expression hardened. "Don't mistake opportunity for charity, Sophia. I don't give anything without expecting return." "And what return do you expect from me?" I challenged. He moved closer, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. "Loyalty, discretion, excellence in your duties." His gaze dropped briefly to my lips before returning to my eyes. For now, the implication hung in the air between us, charged and dangerous. I should have been offended, should have walked away. Instead, I felt that same reckless thrill I'd experienced earlier, the exhilaration of playing with fire. "My loyalty is to your mother's care," I said carefully. "Not to you, for now," he repeated, stepping back. "We'll see how long that distinction holds." A knock at the door interrupted whatever he might have said next. A man entered, the same security guard who had been at the diner. His expression was serious. "Boss, we have a situation," he said, his eyes flicking briefly to me. Antonio's demeanor changed instantly, all traces of the almost flirtation vanishing. "Take Sophia back to her room," he instructed. "Make sure she stays there." "I don't need an escort," I protested. "It wasn't an offer," Antonio said coldly. "This house has rules, Sophia. The most important being that when I give an order, it's followed, without question." The guard approached, gesturing toward the door. I glared at Antonio, then turned and walked out with as much dignity as I could muster. The guard, Paolo. He eventually introduced himself, escorted me back to my room in silence. Only when we reached the door did he speak. "Lock it behind you," he advised. "Don't come out until morning, no matter what you hear." A chill ran down my spine. What's going to happen? "Nothing for you to worry about," he said, but his eyes told a different story. "Just stay in your room, for your own safety." After he left, I did as instructed, turning the lock and then dragging a chair in front of the door for good measure. Through the window, I watched headlights approach the house. 3 cars moving too fast up the driveway. Men emerged, their movements quick and purposeful. I counted 5, then 6, all disappearing into the house. I sat on the edge of the bed, my new reality crashing down around me. I had signed a contract with a man who was clearly dangerous in a house that was clearly at the center of criminal activity. I was trapped, if not physically, then financially and circumstantially. Yet beneath the fear was something else. A shameful excitement. For years, my life had been a monotonous struggle for survival. Now suddenly, I was thrust into a world of danger and luxury, power and secrets. A world where Antonio Rossi looked at me with possessive intent, where his mother claimed me as family, where my nursing skills were valued instead of abandoned. A distant sound echoed through the house, something between a shout and a crash. I moved away from the door, heart pounding. Whatever situation had arisen, I wanted no part of it. I crawled into the massive bed, pulling the covers up like a shield. This was just for 3 months, I reminded myself. Just long enough to save money, get back on my feet, find a new apartment. I wouldn't get attached. I wouldn't get involved. But as sleep finally claimed me, Antonio's words echoed in my mind, for now. Morning arrived with pale sunlight filtering through curtains I'd forgotten to close. For a moment, I lay disoriented, the luxurious bedding and unfamiliar ceiling confusing my sleep-addled mind. Then reality rushed back. The diner, Mrs. Rossi, Antonio, the contract, the mysterious situation that had sent me to my room like a child. I sat up, listening. The house was quiet, with only the distant sounds of staff moving about. Whatever had happened last night appeared to be over. The clock on the nightstand read 6:30 a.m., early by most standards, but the hour I typically woke for my morning shift at the diner. Old habits died hard. I showered quickly, then faced the closet with its array of new clothing. Most items still bore price tags that made my eyes widen, but I selected the simplest outfit I could find: dark jeans, a soft gray sweater, and comfortable flats. As I dressed, I noticed a phone on the dresser that hadn't been there the night before. Sleek, expensive, and definitely not my cracked device. A note beside it read simply, "Secure line. Your number has been transferred. A." I picked it up cautiously, finding it already activated and loaded with contacts. Antonio, Elena, Paolo, Maria, security, medical. My privacy invaded yet again, but I couldn't deny the practicality of having a working phone. I slipped it into my pocket, unsure whether to feel grateful or violated. The hallway was empty when I emerged. I made my way downstairs, trying to remember the route to Elena's suite. The mansion was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that felt deliberate rather than peaceful. I passed a room with its door ajar, glimpsing men cleaning what looked suspiciously like blood from expensive tile flooring. I quickened my pace, keeping my gaze forward. Elena's door was guarded by a man I hadn't seen before, younger than Paolo, with a fresh scar across his jaw and watchful eyes. He straightened when he saw me. "Miss Sophia," he acknowledged, surprising me with his recognition. "Mrs. Rossi is awake. She asked for you." "Thank you." I paused, realizing I didn't know his name. "Marco," he supplied, opening the door for me. Elena was sitting in a chair by the window, a book open on her lap, looking more fragile in the morning light. She brightened when she saw me. "Sophia, you survived your first night." There was a question in her statement, her eyes searching my face. "It was eventful," I said carefully, moving to check her medication chart. "How are you feeling this morning?" "My pulse is racing a bit," she admitted. "Too much excitement in this house lately." I found her wrist, counting the beats. 96, higher than I'd like. I reached for the blood pressure cuff kept on her bedside table. "Let me check your pressure too." As I worked, I felt her studying me. "You heard the commotion last night," she stated. "I heard something," I acknowledged, keeping my tone neutral. I was advised to stay in my room. Good advice, she murmured. This business Antonio runs, it has its complications. The blood pressure cuff beeped, 142/88. Your pressure is elevated too, I noted, recording the numbers in her chart. Did you take your morning medications yet? Don't change the subject, dear, she chided gently. You're curious. It's natural. I met her gaze directly. I'm concerned about your health. Stress isn't good for your heart condition. Neither is ignorance, she countered. If you're to survive here, you should know what you've walked into. I hesitated, then asked the question that had been burning in my mind since yesterday. Is your son dangerous? Her laugh was soft but genuine. To his enemies? Absolutely. To those under his protection. She shook her head. Antonio shields what he considers his with everything he has. That's the Rossi way. And which category do I fall into? Her expression turned knowing. That depends on you, doesn't it? But I suspect you've already caught his interest in ways that go beyond your nursing skills. Heat crept up my neck. I'm only here to care for you. For now, she said, unknowingly echoing her son's words from the previous night. She sighed, suddenly looking tired. The men who came last night, they were Venucci's, a rival family testing boundaries. I busied myself organizing her morning pills, trying to process this casual confirmation that I was living in a Mafia household. I don't need details, but you do, she insisted. Ignorance won't protect you. Knowledge might. She took the medication cup I offered, swallowing the pills with practiced ease. Antonio handled it. He always does. Handled it how? The words escaped before I could stop them. Her eyes met mine, steady and unflinching, however was necessary. The implication hung between us, and I remembered the glimpse of men cleaning blood from tiles. I swallowed hard, focusing on adjusting her oxygen level instead of pursuing that line of questioning. A knock at the door interrupted us, and Antonio himself entered. He looked immaculate as ever in a tailored suit, but subtle signs betrayed his exhaustion. The faint shadows beneath his eyes, the tightness at the corners of his mouth. His gaze swept over me, assessing, before turning to his mother. You should be resting, he admonished her. I've rested enough for 3 lifetimes, she replied. Sophia and I were just getting better acquainted. His expression darkened. Were you now? She needs to understand this family if she's going to be part of it, Elena said firmly. She's an employee, not family, he corrected, though his eyes lingered on me with something more complex than an employer's assessment. For now, Elena said for the 3rd time, and I wondered if they realized they were both using the same phrase to describe my ambiguous position. Antonio's phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression hardening further. I have to go out. Business. Cleaning up last night's mess? Elena asked pointedly. He shot her a warning look. Nothing for you to worry about, and nothing for Sophia to worry about either, she pressed. His gaze shifted to me. Sophia's contract covers medical care, not family business. But who cares for the caretaker? Elena persisted. She was frightened last night, Antonio. Locked in her room while men with guns ran through the house. I wasn't frightened, I interjected, though it wasn't entirely true. Just concerned. Antonio studied me for a long moment. Paolo will remain with you today, he finally said. Both of you. For protection. Is that necessary? I asked. Yes, he stated flatly. Until I'm certain the situation is fully resolved. Elena sighed. More guards. More isolation. Is this how you intend for me to spend my final years? Like a prisoner in a gilded cage? Pain flashed across Antonio's face. So brief I almost missed it. It's for your safety, Mother. Safety without freedom is just another kind of death, she replied, turning to gaze out the window. But go. Handle your business. Sophia and I will manage. The dismissal was clear. Antonio's jaw tightened, but he said nothing more, merely nodded once in my direction before leaving. The tension he carried seemed to linger in the room after his departure. He carries too much, Elena said softly, still staring out the window. Has since his father died. I moved to stand beside her, following her gaze to the gardens below. where security personnel patrolled the perimeter. "How did his father die?" "Shot," she said simply. "In this very house, at a dinner party. Antonio was 24. He took control that same night, called the captains, secured loyalty, hunted down the killers." Her voice held a mixture of pride and sorrow. "He's never been young since. I tried to imagine it. A young man thrust into leadership through violence, forced to command respect from men twice his age, with his father's blood still fresh on the floor. It explained some of the hardness in him, the constant vigilance." "I'm sorry," I said, inadequate but sincere. "Life gives us burdens," she replied. "Some heavier than others. The measure of a person is not what they carry, but how they carry it." She turned to face me. "Which brings me to you, Sophia. What burden are you carrying that I see behind your eyes?" The question caught me off guard. "I don't know what you mean." "You recognize Antonio's pain because you carry your own," she said gently. "Not just poverty or lost opportunity. Something deeper." I swallowed hard, unprepared for her perception. "My past is my own, as you wish," she conceded. "But remember, wounds fester in darkness. Sometimes the only cure is to bring them to light." The day passed in a strange rhythm of medical routine and surreal circumstance. I checked Elena's vitals regularly, administered medications, and helped her with gentle exercise to maintain circulation. Between these duties, we played cards. She was ruthless at poker. Read together, she preferred Russian classics, and talked, though I was careful to keep the conversation away from personal matters. Paolo remained a constant, silent presence, positioned just outside the door. Occasionally his phone would buzz, and he would step away to speak in hushed tones before returning to his post. Each time, Elena would watch him with knowing eyes but say nothing. By late afternoon, she was tiring, and I helped her to bed for a rest. As I was adjusting her pillows, she grasped my wrist with surprising strength. "Antonio will test you," she warned. "He tests everyone, but especially those he might care for." "He doesn't care for me," I objected. "He barely knows me." Her smile was enigmatic. "My son has always known what he wants the moment he sees it. It's his gift, and his curse." After she dozed off, I slipped out to find Maria, hoping to inquire about dinner arrangements. Instead, I encountered Marco in the hallway, looking agitated. "Miss Sophia," he said urgently, "Mr. Rossi requested you join him in his study, immediately." Alarm flickered through me. "Is something wrong? Is it Elena?" "No, ma'am," he replied. It's best not to keep him waiting." He escorted me through the house, past rooms I hadn't seen before, until we reached the study from the previous night. Marco knocked once, then opened the door without waiting for a response. Antonio stood by the fireplace, his back to the door, tension evident in every line of his body. When he turned, I was struck by the storm in his eyes, anger barely contained, mixed with something darker. "Leave us," he commanded, and Marco disappeared, closing the door with a decisive click. Antonio studied me for a long moment. "You look concerned," he observed. "You summoned me urgently," I replied. It seemed warranted. He moved to a sideboard, pouring amber liquid into a crystal glass. "Drink?" he offered, as he had the night before. This time, I accepted. "Yes, please." Surprise flickered across his face as he handed me the glass. Our fingers brushed, the contact brief but electric. I took a small sip, the whiskey burning a path down my throat. "There was another incident today," he said without preamble. "A message left at the gates, for me." I waited, unsure what this had to do with me. "It mentioned you," he continued, his voice deceptively calm. "By name." The glass nearly slipped from my fingers. "What? How is that possible? I've only been here one day." "Exactly," he said, eyes narrowing. "Which raises the question of how they knew about you at all." Understanding dawned, cold and sharp. "You think I'm involved somehow?" "The thought crossed my mind," he admitted. "A waitress who happens to help my mother, who happens to have medical training, who happens to arrive just as tensions with the Venucci's escalate." Anger flared, hot and sudden. "You think I'm what? A spy? A plant? I set the glass down with more force than necessary. "You're the one who approached me, remember? You brought me here." "After my mother spoke of you," he countered. "After you gained her trust." "I served her coffee and helped with pills she was struggling to open," I exclaimed. "That's not some elaborate infiltration scheme." He moved closer, his gaze intense. "Then explain how they knew your name. Explain how they knew to use you as leverage." "I can't," I said honestly. "I don't know anything about your rivals or your business. Until yesterday, I was just trying to make rent and keep the electricity on." "So you claim." "It's the truth." I ran a hand through my hair in frustration. "Look, if you don't trust me, then let me go. Tear up the contract. I'll leave right now." Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. "No." The single word held such finality that it stopped me short. "No? You're not leaving," he stated. "Not until I determine whether you're a threat or a target." "You can't keep me prisoner here," I protested. His laugh was without humor. "Can I?" Fear and defiance warred within me. "If you believe I'm working for your enemies, why would you want me near your mother?" "Because keeping potential threats close allows me to control them," he replied. "And because, despite my suspicions, my mother needs you." His expression softened marginally. "And she's grown attached already," I swallowed hard. "I would never harm your mother." "Intentionally, perhaps not," he conceded. "But harm comes in many forms." We stood in tense silence, the air between us charged with suspicion and something else. Something that made my heart beat faster despite the circumstances. "What did the message say?" I finally asked. "The one with my name." He studied me for a long moment, as if debating how much to reveal. "It suggested that things I value are vulnerable. It named my mother. And you." "Me?" I repeated in disbelief. "I'm nothing to you." His expression shifted, became unreadable. "Yet they believe you are." "And perception, in my world, is as dangerous as reality." The implications sank in slowly. "So I'm a target, because they think I matter to you." "Yes. But I don't," I said, needing to clarify this crucial point. He moved closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne, see the faint stubble along his jaw. "Don't you?" My breath caught. "I've known you for one day. Sometimes that's all it takes," he murmured, his gaze dropping briefly to my lips before returning to my eyes. "Recognition." The word hung between us, laden with meaning I wasn't prepared to examine. I took a step back, needing distance to think clearly. "So what happens now?" I asked. "Now," he said, "we give them what they expect to see." "Which is?" His smile was predatory. "Me, protecting what's mine." "I'm not yours," I said firmly, though my racing pulse betrayed me. "I'm your mother's caretaker." "Semantics," Antonio dismissed with a wave of his hand. "What matters is what the Venuccis believe." He circled me slowly, assessing. "From now on, you don't go anywhere without security. You stay close to me in public. You become, for all appearances, under my protection." "A pretense," I clarified. His eyes darkened. "If that's what you need to tell yourself." Before I could respond, a knock came at the door. Paolo entered without waiting for permission, his expression grim. "They've sent something else," he said to Antonio. "You need to see this." Antonio's posture changed instantly. All business now. "Stay here," he ordered me, following Paolo out. Alone in the study, I paced nervously, my mind racing. In just over 24 hours, I'd gone from anonymous waitress to apparent pawn in a Mafia power struggle. It was surreal, terrifying. And yet I couldn't deny the strange exhilaration beneath the fear. For years I'd been invisible, struggling just to survive. Now, suddenly I mattered, even if only as leverage in a dangerous game. Minutes stretched into half an hour before Antonio returned. His face was carved from stone, eyes cold with rage barely contained. In his hand was a small box. "What is it?" I asked. He set the box on his desk. "A message. For both of us." I approached cautiously. Inside the box lay a delicate gold chain with a small pendant, a broken heart, with jagged edges where it had been snapped in two. Beside it was a photograph of me, taken just that morning as I'd stood at Elena's window, looking out at the garden. The image was marked with a red X. My blood turned to ice. They were watching me. Today. Yes. Antonio's voice was deadly quiet. Inside my home. Inside my security. How? That's what I intend to find out. He closed the box with a decisive snap. My men are sweeping the property now. In the meantime, you'll be moved to a more secure location. What about your mother? She's already being relocated. He checked his watch. We leave in 20 minutes. Pack only essentials. Antonio, I began, trying to keep my voice steady. Maybe I should just go. Leave town. If I'm not here, they can't use me against you. His expression darkened. You think they'd let you simply walk away now? That they wouldn't hunt you down the moment you left my protection? The thought hadn't occurred to me. I could disappear. No one disappears from people like the Venuccis unless they have resources and connections you don't possess. He moved closer, his intensity almost palpable. Your best chance, your only chance, is with me. Fear and something else tightened my chest. Why would you protect me? You barely know me. You even suspected I might be working for them. I suspected, he acknowledged. I no longer do. What changed? His jaw tightened. The nature of their threat. The Venuccis are many things, but they're not subtle. If you were their plant, they wouldn't have marked you as a target so explicitly. It was cold comfort. So instead of a spy, I'm just collateral damage. You're alive, he corrected sharply. And I intend to keep you that way. 20 minutes later, I found myself in the back of an armored SUV, a small bag of belongings beside me. Antonio sat opposite, his phone constantly buzzing with updates from his men. Elena had been moved separately, for security, though I suspected it was also to keep her from witnessing whatever Antonio planned next. We drove for hours, taking circuitous routes, changing vehicles twice. Night had fallen by the time we reached our destination, a secluded lakeside property, smaller than the mansion but no less secure, with guards positioned at every approach. The lake house, Antonio explained as we entered, more defensible, fewer access points. The interior was warm, with natural woods and stone that reflected the surrounding forest. It felt more like a home than the mansion had. Less opulent, more intimate. My mother will join us tomorrow, Antonio said, guiding me through the house, once I'm certain we weren't followed. He showed me to a bedroom that overlooked the lake, moonlight dancing on the water's surface. You should rest. It's been a long day. How can I rest? I asked, genuine bewilderment in my voice. People are trying to kill me because they think I matter to you. He studied me for a long moment. And that bothers you more than the death threat itself. I hadn't realized it until he pointed it out. But he was right. The implied connection between us unsettled me more than the danger. I don't want to be defined by my relationship to you. Yet here we are, he said softly. Connected, whether you want it or not. By circumstance, I insisted. By choice, he countered. You chose to help my mother. I chose to bring you into my home. Those choices have consequences. I sank onto the edge of the bed, suddenly exhausted. What happens now? Now I eliminate the threat, he said simply. Permanently. The cold certainty in his voice should have terrified me. Instead, I felt a strange relief. The comfort of knowing someone was willing to go to such lengths to protect me. And then? I asked. His expression softened, almost imperceptibly. Then we continue as planned. You care for my mother. I run my business. Life goes on. But we both knew it wasn't that simple. Lines had been crossed, connections formed that couldn't be easily severed. Get some rest, he said again, moving toward the door. Tomorrow will bring clarity. I didn't expect to sleep, but exhaustion claimed me almost as soon as my head touched the pillow. I dreamed of dark eyes watching me, of broken heart pendants, of blood on tile floors. The sound of movement woke me just before dawn. I sat up, heart pounding, to find Antonio standing in the doorway. Get dressed, he said, his voice terse. It's over. I scrambled out of bed. What happened? I dealt with it, he replied, offering no details. The Venuccis won't be a problem anymore. I didn't ask how he had dealt with it. Some things were better left unknown. Instead, I asked, "Are we safe now?" "Yes." He seemed different somehow, lighter, as if a burden had been lifted. "My mother will arrive in a few hours. We'll stay here for a week or so, until I'm certain all loose ends are tied up." I nodded, processing this. "And then we go back to the mansion? Back to... before?" His smile was faint but genuine. "There is no going back, Sophia, only forward." He left me to dress, and I found myself standing at the window, watching the sunrise over the lake. The beauty of it struck me, pink and gold light spilling across the water, mist rising like ghostly fingers from the surface. It had been so long since I'd had time to simply watch a sunrise. When I emerged, I found Antonio on the deck, coffee in hand, gazing out at the same view. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said without turning. "Yes," I agreed, accepting the second cup he offered. "Peaceful. I come here to think," he said. "Away from the business, the responsibilities. Here, I can remember who I am beneath it all. And who is that?" I asked, genuinely curious. He turned to me, his expression more open than I'd seen it. "A man who inherited a kingdom he never asked for. A son who couldn't save his father. A brother who lost his sister to the life." He paused. "A protector who sometimes fails to protect." The vulnerability in his admission caught me off guard. "I didn't know you had a sister, Bianca," he said, her name like a prayer. "She ran away at 18, trying to escape the family business. Got involved with drugs, bad men. By the time I found her..." He didn't finish the sentence, didn't need to. "I'm sorry," I said softly. "That's why my mother worries so much about me," he continued. "She's lost too much already. A husband, a daughter. She fears losing me to this life too." Understanding dawned. That's why she was so eager for my help, not just for her medication. He nodded. "She sees in you what she wishes Bianca had found: strength, independence, compassion. Someone who might..." He hesitated. "Balance me." The implication hung between us, delicate and dangerous. "I'm just here to help with her heart condition," I reminded him, but the words sounded hollow even to my own ears. His smile held no mockery this time, only warmth. "For now," he said, echoing the phrase that had become our unintentional refrain. "But life has a way of changing our plans." As the sun rose higher, casting long shadows across the deck, I felt something shifting within me. The waitress who had lived in constant fear of eviction seemed like someone else entirely, a ghost from another life. Here, standing beside Antonio Rossi, watching dawn break over a private lake, I was becoming someone new. Whether that someone was stronger or merely more compromised, I couldn't yet tell. But as Antonio's hand found mine, fingers intertwining with gentle pressure, I realized I was eager to find out. "Your mother will be here soon," I said, not pulling away. "Yes," he agreed, "and then our real life begins." Our life, not his, not mine, ours. The presumption should have angered me, but instead, it felt like a door opening, revealing a future I hadn't dared imagine. For 3 months, I'd promised myself. Just long enough to save money, get back on my feet. A temporary arrangement. But as Antonio raised my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles that felt like both a claiming and a promise, I knew the truth. There would be no going back to my old life. Only forward, into a world of danger and luxury, power and protection. Into his world, which was somehow becoming mine as well. For now, I would care for his mother. For now, I would maintain the boundaries I'd set. For now. But the future stretched before us, unwritten and full of possibility, and for the first time in years, I found myself looking forward with hope instead of dread.